at the State House to educate locals about radical transgenderism. Local trans activists got wind of this and said, "Not on my watch."
The First Amendment was written exactly for this, to not try to censor or disrupt. It's for civil discussion. It's not for censoring any one party. You are the ones who are actually violating the First Amendment by being disruptive.
Things got so hectic that the sergeant of arms said, "Everybody out."
I'm losing control of the room and my ability to maintain a safe space for legislators, staff, the public. Approximately 5 minutes, I'm going to shut the doors and ask everyone to leave the room.
No DEI Thursdays complete with...
Well, Paul, that was our video.
Yeah.
On
that a primetime victory.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're good. Sorry. Yeah.
There you go. So, Paul, that was our video last night on Jesse Waters.
Yeah.
On Fox News.
Yes, it was.
Of what happened on Wednesday in the State House. And it was an amazing moment. We'll be talking about it for the whole show. We really want people to chime in with their ideas, their comments, their suggestions about what should happen.
Yeah.
We're live here on BDC TV's Friday at 4. And Paul, I think you have Renee McGinnis, who planned that Detransitioning Awareness Day. You've got her spooled up next.
Yes, I do. Here she is. Here's her explaining from kind of her perspective what happened.
What needs to happen almost immediately is
written exactly for this, to not try to censor or disrupt. It's for civil discussion. It's not for censoring any one party.
claiming free speech, First Amendment rights, while denying ours. Well, Agatha, the Sergeant of Arms, actually brought into action to have people just clear the room. Still, even though they were being disruptive and singing and dancing and shouting, that I wanted to try to attempt to speak because we had reserved the room, and then if Agatha wanted to proceed from there to shut it down, that she could do that, which she did. So it's sad and unfortunate that the First Amendment is really about civil discourse, right, and not censoring one group over another. So actually our First Amendment rights were denied in this case in favor of a group that was disruptive.
Why did you guys shut it down? Just what was going on?
I wasn't confident I could ensure people's safety.
Okay. Yeah. That's what it came down to for just everybody involved?
Yep.
Okay.
Agatha was asking us to step down, and I felt like I needed to make an effort to try to hold our event. And I expected that they probably would escalate, and it exposed their behavior. So it sounds like, talking with Agatha, the Sergeant at Arms, and what needs to happen almost immediately is some rules changes by the legislature to accommodate when groups have reserved a room. We had the room reserved, the other group did not. That there is a certain level of decorum, and that the group who is disrupting, they can join and sit there civilly and can have discourse. But there needs to be rules around civil discourse. That's not under the First Amendment for one group to just be able to outshout the other, and whoever outshouts the other, then they've won their First Amendment rights at the sacrifice of the other party. So that's what needs to happen first. So as far as what we were trying to cover, so Detrans Awareness Day it's an international event to bring awareness to persons who are detransitioning. They are being obviously denied and ostracized and bullied, and they are persons who have been hurt by the healthcare that they've been provided, physically, chemically, and they want to have a voice, and they want healing from their wounds and injuries because of the medical procedures that they've been. So we brought studies, books written by Oz Hakim, who's a psychotherapist who's done group therapy and has been very successful and like the numbers of transitioning goes way down, and so then the regret goes way down. He had a really good story to tell. We wanted to tell his story of his group therapy with persons who were detransitioned, to sisters and persons who were considering transitioning, and a lot of fewer people in group therapy decided not to.
So what you're seeing here, Paul, at least what I'm seeing here, is a continuation of something that's been happening in Vermont for several years, which is one group is apparently so special, so anointed, and so untouchable that really they can almost do anything, and there's no pushback from the political folks, there's no pushback from the media, and from law enforcement. And I say this because you may remember, Paul, that a year or two ago, down there was a biological boy who was in a locker room with some girls in Randolph.
Yeah.
And wouldn't leave, was asked to leave, wouldn't leave, but he was transgender, so, it was okay, and the girls complained about it. They got suspended. WCAX ran a story that said, hey, what about this? Outright Vermont, the LGBTQ plus with the emphasis on the transgender, said, whoa, we insist that you pull that show. Take it off of your archives. It doesn't exist. Disappear that story. And for the first time I can remember in the history of the Vermont media, they caved. They pulled that story. And Outright Vermont put out a press release saying, and let that be a lesson to the rest of the Vermont media. So they apparently are thinking, we can tell them what to do and they've got to do it. A few months later, an elderly gentleman who was one of the original gay activists who did the Stonewall protest, with the original gay rights acts, was standing on Church Street during a gay pride parade, which again was mostly a focus on transgender. And he had a shirt that said, there are two genders, because he was part of the gay rights movement that believes in male and female. He was knocked to the ground. Elderly man was knocked to the ground by these transgender activists. And again, only one media, that would be us, reported it. No police action, no nothing. So this emboldened movement comes into the State House on Wednesday and just shouts down, sings down, disrupts, turns signs around, manhandles property belonging to the people who are setting up a day. And what were these folks doing? What were the detransitioning people doing? It was a National Detransitioning Awareness Day, which said basically, not everyone who detransitions is happy with it.
Or everyone who transitions is happy with it, I think is what you mean. Not everybody who transition is happy with their transition.
That's right.
And
yeah.
I watched the reporting on the event from a number of sources, right? And I saw CAX versions of the story, I saw WPTZ's version of the story, and of course we have our version of the story. And man, the way that these stories are just so differently reported on, right? I mean, I'll give credit to WPTZ. They actually did add that there are some people that do transition who, don't like it and decide to go back. That's a fact, So
why is that so threatening?
I don't know. I don't know. But maybe we can talk about it. I know we want to keep the pace of this show up because there's so much to talk about with just this one story, and there's of course other stuff that happened too this week. But quickly, I will say, if you're watching, you want to participate in the conversation, the comment section is below. We want to hear your comments. We want to hear what you have to say. I'm sorry if we don't get to all of them today, but we're going to do our best to make sure we honor the ones that we do. So just right off the top, we have one from Crystal Correview, writes, these mentally ill people should have been removed. Well, let's talk about that some more, Guy. Where do you want to go from here?
I don't know about the mental illness.
Yeah.
I'm kind of agnostic on the whole. If someone wants to say, you know what, my gender is something else other than what I was born with,
yeah,
that's their business. I may not agree with it,
sure,
but it's their business. It's the real problem here was that someone else had a different point of view, And the spirit of the State House, in fact, the job of the Sergeant at Arms is to maintain the decorum and civility, quote unquote, in the State House. And which I would assume means that you can't shout down someone who is expressing a different point of view. So,
yeah. Well, and I think just to add to that, you know, then we get the statement today, or maybe it wasn't today, it's yesterday, from Vermont Democratic Party and some of the leadership within the Vermont Democratic Party. And I'll just show you guys quickly the graphic that they have, that they used in their press release kind of thing, explaining, you know, really calling out the attacks made by
Wait, they were calling out the trans people for attacking the detransitioners?
No, they were actually calling out the organizers of the event for hosting the event, saying that it was an attack.
Did they give any explanation as to how that could possibly be an attack?
Here you go. Here's a little quote from what they have. In response to recent attempts to politicize an individual's private journey with gender identity and medical care, Vermont Democrats reaffirm our unwavering commitment to the rights and freedom of all Vermonters. Personal health decisions and gender identity are deeply personal matters, not talking points, political talking points.
No, because they never talk about this, do they, Paul?
Well, no, they never talk about this. Every individual deserves dignity and respect to make choices free from public scrutiny and interference or government overreach. All right, let me just start right here with this. Don't ever talk to us about the freedom of medical choices after what you all just pulled the last 4 years during COVID. Forcing people inside, force injections of state employees that don't work. Don't even talk to us about medical choices. That is absolutely insane, and you guys have zero ground to stand on. And the fact that you even use the phrases, you know, personal health decisions, that has nothing to do with what yesterday's event was about. And actually, people that are seeking to detransition is a personal health decision.
What?
That is a personal health decision. That you have no right to silence a group of Vermonters and Americans who are seeking to express their First Amendment right. You know, there's just the intricacies of this story are dumb. They have me kind of dumbfounded, honestly.
Yeah. I think it comes down to you have a group with a point of view that does not want to hear an alternative point of view, and they don't want to hear it so badly that they will hiss, sing, yell, stomp, and do whatever they have to do to drown you out. And I think of the other times this has happened in my personal experience in Vermont. And there's a real lesson here, Paul. The first time was at a Vermont Yankee hearing. Someone who wanted to shut down Vermont Yankee, anytime someone supporting it spoke up. This was at a Nuclear Regulatory Hearing Commission. This is a federal official body. Would yell, sing, laugh, play a noisemaker so people couldn't hear. He was finally asked to leave. But I thought, you know, and here we are with a carbon crisis, supposedly. We're not able to meet our mandates. We're having artificial intelligence is growing like crazy, hugely increasing the demands for power. And even the Biden administration was saying, we need to build more nuclear plants. So not only were they wrong to suppress the speech, they were wrong on the point.
The issue itself.
They were running us down the wrong road.
Yeah.
So the second time it happened, my middle school chum, Jim Sexton, organized a defend the police.
Defend the police
rally in the State House lawn. This is, 4 years ago, beautiful day. And just one speaker after another saying, we just love our police and we don't want to defund you. We so value you and what you do. It was peaceful. It was mostly, you know, senior citizens in lawn chairs enjoying the sun. You know, it was a really laid back event until Antifa showed up and started yelling and screaming and megaphoning. You notice the megaphone on that Paul?
I'll show it, one more time, sure. Hold on, let me make sure I can pull it up here. Here it is. Yeah, megaphone, just like yesterday at the State House.
I'm thinking that is not an accident.
No, I'm
that
thinking
there's a
it's-
megaphone there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and so the megaphone, which basically shouts out other people, overcomes other people's voices, and who was painted as the villain at that one? Actually, it was the Defend the Police who were painted in the media as the villains because someone who no one on the Defend the Police side had ever met before made some statement about people of color needing to leave the state, and the media, Antifa caught it on their little cameras, and they gave it to the media. The media went nuts with it. Governor Scott at his press conference the next day was tisking about it.
Classic.
And I thought, I was there, and I saw basically a mob mugging of a bunch of peaceful, quiet, mostly elderly people. That's what I saw. And so I'm kind of used to this, where there's this tactic where you show up, you shut people up, and then you make them the victim, the bad guys.
It's almost like you're kind of tricking people into having a reaction, and then you play victim. I mean, this is a very common tactic in history by people who want to be the victim. But point is, I think a lot of people maybe they're maybe not understanding this situation. It's like they might be wondering, well, what do you mean this is free speech? Well, look, very clearly, just to put it bluntly, organization seeks to host a conversation, forum, open conversation about this event. And they reserved a room for it, which you can do at the State House. And, looking into the rules and even speaking to one of the state police officers or the head of the Capitol Police, said, they actually can remove people, right? They could take people out of the State House if they're being disruptive.
That's an open question right now.
Well, point is, they can if they. If you've seen it, I've seen it before, and I've seen it, and I've been told stories. I guess the point is, though, is like as you're talking about, it's like this issue might not seem that important to you, this issue specifically, but if we allow it here for this story or this situation, then they think that they can get away with it anywhere. And
they got away with it at Vermont Yankee. They got away with it at Defend the Police, and they're getting away with it here. Yes. What's next?
Well, and this is what I put up this post on X yesterday or this morning. I wrote, I avoid any and all protests. Protests are chaotic, angry, yelling, incoherent, and generally not taken seriously by common people. The best form of free speech, discussions, forums, engaging conversation, town halls, editorials, commentary, and press conferences. Right. Basically, what I'm seeing right now in this country is a push for this type of behavior. You're seeing this at all these Tesla dealerships. We saw it a couple weeks ago with J.D. Vance here in Vermont. Just this vitriol, angry, in-your-face response to ideas that we don't like. And we're going to bully you to make sure that you're afraid to talk about it. And that's kind of what
who's paying for this too, by the way, Paul?
Act Blue. Well, look, I don't know. I do believe outright.
They're collecting money for it anyway.
Outright Vermont gets money from the state, if I'm not mistaken.
They have some educational funding, they do.
So look, I'm not sure. You'd have to really dive into the funding because they're really good at making it very clean, if you will. But the point is, this is all AstroTurf. There's a big protest on Saturday at the Tesla dealership in Burlington, hosted by two organizations that are in some forms affiliated with the Democratic Party.
That's right.
Very obviously. And if it's not the Democratic Party, it's Bernie Sanders' PAC, who of course is an independent, right? Yeah. And you look into the finances of this, you'll find it yourself. It's not that complicated. And we've written a bit about it, and this issue, the fact that, and I don't think you've talked at all about your conversation with the Sergeant at Arms. You did have a conversation with her today, if I'm not.
I did, yes. I was sitting in the cafeteria talking with Mike Boloski, one of our other reporters, in the State House. And Agatha Kessler approached me and said, Guy, I just want to let you know I'm very disappointed with your coverage. And I said, why? And she said, I'm very disappointed with your coverage. Well, what about? The misinformation. What misinformation? That's all I'm going to say. And she walked off. And I think, Paul, my guess is, she's elected, right? She's, I suppose it's sort of unflattering to say she's a tool of the legislative leadership, but she's elected by them. She was elected only by 2 votes, by the supermajority last year. And she probably was told to register her blame on me. To basically say, this was your fault.
Yeah.
Shoot the messenger. And I can only say, that video, Agatha, that does not lie. That you could have asked the disruptors to leave. You did not. You were asked, why haven't you? Why haven't you asked them to leave? And when I did that, she first had said, in 5 minutes, I'm going to close the room. And I said, Agatha, this is unfair to the people who reserved this room. Why haven't you asked them to leave? She said, 4 minutes. So really, there was no real discussion and engagement in that. And the police, Capitol Police, were outside the room. I would think if they had been asked to come in and at least ask those folks to leave, maybe they would have. At least they could have tried, but they didn't. They didn't. They shut it down for everyone. And that's why yes, I do blame the organization, but activists are activists. They're going to do what they're going to do. But the grown-ups in the room should be able to do what they can do to maintain the civility and decorum of the State House.
Actually, to that point, Guy, I don't mean to interrupt, but
No.
even still, like, actually, now that you say that, like, I actually don't even disagree with them doing what they did yesterday. As long as the Sergeant at Arms and the authorities are going to, take matters into their hands like they're supposed to, as defined by the law. I mean, as far as we've seen so far, maybe she doesn't agree with that. Fine, but I don't even care if they want to come in and be disruptive like that and try to stop it. Honestly, I actually genuinely thought it was kind of funny. But at the end of the day, let's let them do their thing. Now let us have our conversation. Let us talk about it, and we'll all move on.
Right.
But now it's national news. Now the story is out there even more. Now the whole concept of detransitioning is even more amplified. So
good job, folks.
In the long run, it actually worked out for the Vermont Family Alliance and Renee better than I think she ever could have thought it would. I mean, and for us that matter. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, to have your clip go on national news, like, holy cow, like, pretty interesting. So
that was kind of cool.
I would say, it's unfortunate the conversation didn't happen, but all it did was magnify this event and bring more light to, because I mean, even still, like public response that I've seen almost unanimously is in support of our side, if you will.
Speaking of public response, Paul, do we have any more comments coming in?
I do, yeah.
Good. Let's give them the honor they deserve here.
So let's see here. This is Crystal Corriveau. I'm sorry.
Corriveau, I think.
Corriveau.
Yeah.
When I advocated to close Wyndham School in Vermont, I was attacked daily, as well as my family. They are not part of peace. My opinion is truly transgender humans are not looking for that negative attention. The people truly going through this want to bring supportive, loving attention to their journey, not what you saw there. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm somebody who, I don't personally agree. I don't condone the lifestyle choices, but if that's what you want to do, I believe in American freedom, right? At the end of the day, I don't know what's right. I mean, I believe I know what's right and what's wrong, but that's kind of a nuanced approach to where it's like that's actually kind of a good take. Like, I mean, if you are somebody who really cares about transgender rights and a community and having your own group of people, what you did yesterday made people that maybe would have sided with you or taken you seriously, now they're never going to take you seriously. Right. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
We also have a comment from Taryn, who writes, very wealthy like Jennifer Pritzker and Martin Rothblatt and John Stryker are paying for this. Google them. It was out of line for the Sergeant of Arms to use her position to comment on the press. It is not part of her job description. She is a joke. The organizers for Vermont Family Alliance should contact a First Amendment firm and sue. the Democratic Party needs to be brought to reality. And, I think that they really, I said this guy, we were sitting at the table yesterday in the cafeteria with some other people, not yesterday, 2 days ago on Wednesday, right after this had happened. And I was sitting across from you and I said, Guy, I think that the Sergeant at Arms is really going to regret this. And you said, I think she is too. And I was just saying that kind of like maybe it'll be some blowback, but I think genuinely all it did was bring more eyes to this singular situation, but not just the situation, the craziness as a whole that exists within the State House in Vermont.
Right.
And the ideas that they're okay with pushing, the ideology that they're okay with having exist, but as soon as anything goes against that, they're kicking you out of the room.
Right.
You're not even allowed to talk about it, right? And I think she's going to regret it because all it's going to do is people are going to see very clearly where she stands as somebody who's supposed to be, non-partisan.
What would be a grown-up way forward for this, Paul?
For her to handle this?
And just at the State House leadership in general, what could they do that could make this problem better?
Well,
fix this?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question, Guy, because when I found out that this was happening, this event, I knew that this was going to happen. I thought immediately, well, there's going to be disruptors there. They're not going to let it happen. So part of me thinks they need to, next time that this event's going to take place, they need to have more security. And they need to basically say, okay, if you're going to protest, you're going to be removed. You can't infringe upon people's First Amendment rights. And we just, as a group, me and you and everybody else who's going to be involved, we need to prepare for it. Like it's a bigger event because you can't not, just because it's controversial, doesn't mean you don't talk about it. That's insane. Or you can't host the event. So, I don't know, maybe she thinks she can say, hey, you're not allowed to host this event anymore.
Well, I wonder, she and some others were sort of alluding that maybe the leadership, whoever, the Joint Rules Committee, whoever, does all this stuff, could get together and say, we need to tweak our policy. We need to make it so that actually, if someone, we'll let them make, as you say, a little bit of noise, but if they are literally shutting down conversation, we are going to draw the line there. And we're going to ask them to leave. And if necessary, we will cite them. Which seems to most people be a very reasonable thing. Frankly, it's what the legislature insists on.
Yeah.
Of course, they have a constitutional right and obligation to do the people's business. Okay, so there's a very low tolerance for, as there should be. But where's our protection? And it seems to me they could simply rewrite the House rules to be more, frankly, in line with state law and civil ordinances, which is if you're disturbing the peace, expect a citation. Expect the cops to intervene.
Well, it comes back to the freedom of speech isn't it is absolute, right? I'm a free speech absolutist, but that doesn't mean you can go into a crowded space and yell fire.
Right.
That would be disruptive.
Yes.
So when free speech is overriding free speech, so-called free speech is overriding actual civil discussion and conversation, that's where I believe free speech does need to be overhauled, especially in the Vermont State House. Like I'm saying, it's like I think that these protests, and there's a reason why I said this on my post, like don't go to them, it's because all you're going to do is find yourself in trouble and not get anywhere and look silly, and people aren't going to take you seriously. And I think that people in this country have this idea that free speech is, getting down to the mall in DC and you're going flower power full mode with your cardboard signs and you're going to be making all sorts of noise, and you're just going to be like fighting the man. Well, a lot of people really don't take that seriously. They're wondering, why aren't you, at your job, or why aren't you working? And it's one thing to have these civil discussions, right, and go to a place with purpose, right, and want to learn about an issue, hear the other side, and that's just not what's happening. But
and speaking of at your job, we probably should do an ad,
yes,
so we can keep doing our jobs
right,
long term, and then we're going to take some more comments, and then we got some more discussion on this.
This episode is brought to you by Procter Gas. Are you a homeowner wishing to convert your home to propane gas so you can enjoy energy efficiency living and off-grid living? Alternatively, you may be seeking a contractor seeking propane tank and line installation services for your clients. Either way, our propane company is here to help. Procter Gas provides comprehensive and a variety of products from leading brands in Rutland and beyond. And Procter Gas is owned by Judy Taranovich. And Judy was actually at the State House on Wednesday as well. So, this crazy story that broke out on Wednesday, totally, we're so sorry, honestly, to all of the people out there that that are following the Chronicle, right? We wanted to cover this clean heat standard.
Oh, the big rally.
Yeah, and we barely have, I did cover it. I recorded the whole press conference. We put out a clip and a few videos on it. And Judy, she made some really interesting points, talking about how Vermont's largest gas company actually was advocating for the clean heat standard. And I was wondering, who's, actually she said fossil fuel company. I thought, well, who's Vermont's largest fossil fuel company? And it turns out it is
Vermont Gas.
Vermont Gas, which is owned by Gas Metro up in Canada. So this whole tariff thing happening with the energy and some really big things are being kind of brought to light. But anyway, I just wanted to touch on that. Judy, thank you so much for coming down there and using your right to freedom of speech to host a press conference. And I think your message was very well received by everybody there. So
That's right.
Hope
Well, I've got a couple things to say on that subject.
Sure.
I just found out today that there's some major action on the clean heat standard in the legislature today. They moved a bill. It's not the repeal bill technically, but they tacked on to another energy bill that said that the fuel dealer registry, which is the real sticking point, the things that Judy and others do not want, which is this registry of every fuel dealer that the state has, and they would know who you are and how much fuel you are selling. And the only reason for that, of course, is oversight, regulation, and taxation. They can reach out and touch you whenever they want. That's what any state registry of an industry is about. Okay. So they were saying, first of all, we don't want you to do that. And also, there was this agreement, and it's that there would be a check back, another affirmative vote of the legislature before any aspect of the clean heat standard went into effect. You cannot proceed with it until a check back vote. And so they were saying, no, you can't have this fuel registry because that's proceeding down the road in a very expensive way, actually, with the clean heat standard. So what they did, the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee sent to the Senate, it would be voted on by the full Senate on Wednesday, a bill that, among other things, pushes 2 years out any action on the registry, on the fuel dealer registry. Whereas it would have, the ball would have continued rolling. They're saying, nope, we're going to wait 2 years until after November 2026. I'm thinking, what happens in November 2026, Paul?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right, there's an election.
Yeah.
So maybe they're hoping that things will sort of go their way and that they'll be off to the races again. But maybe by then Governor Scott will not have run again, although I think he's going to.
I heard he's going to.
Yeah, me too. And maybe they'll get the supermajority back and that kind of thing. They're sort of hoping. But the point is, there's a 2-year delay.
Yeah.
And Matt Cota, fuel dealers, was telling me today, he said, it's a small step in the right direction.
Sure.
Was the way he put it. The other thing, and this is, whoa, is this huge, Paul. You and I have been talking about where is the greatest supply of fracked gas in the world. It's in New York. The New York, Pennsylvania, Marcellus shale fields. That's where there's a ton of natural gas. why isn't that gas able to get to New England where we could, use it? Oh, because the green powers that be have said, we don't want that. We want offshore wind. We want this. We want that. And we don't want that. So,
unless it comes from Canada.
Yeah. Well, and President Trump, I heard him this morning talking on Megyn Kelly, say, that'd be really cheap. It's just one little pipeline from New York to New England. Why not? Let's have the federal government do it.
That sounds more like Bernie guy.
I
really
right.
hate
Well,
to say that. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to do my lousy New York accent, Paul.
I'm sorry.
You're right. That's off.
I couldn't help it.
Okay.
I don't mean to obfuscate from the point. But that's just
No, you're right to point out my deficiencies of my imitations. So anyway,
point is,
he was saying, "Hey, let's get her done."
Sure.
But Kathy Hochul, I think I pronounced the name, Hochul, the governor of New York, is saying, no way, we don't want that, because she hates natural gas and she thinks everything should be green, 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 green. So the company is saying, I don't think we're gonna bite at that, even if the president wants it, because if the state's gonna fight us all the way. But let's say maybe there's a new governor who has a different frame of mind, that could change.
Yeah.
So that's just one of those things that we're so used to this idea, we need to import it. Well, actually, if we built a modular nuke in Vermont, as frankly some of our top Vermont people would like, if we did a pipeline from New York to New England, we could have our own domestic, low-carbon, plentiful power.
Yeah.
And the tariff thing is stimulating every little bit of that.
Conversation, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the big takeaway from it. It's like everyone's freaking out. Oh, this is so terrible. But look at all
chaos is the word, by the way.
Chaos is the word.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's been a bit of chaos because of it, even within our own trying to wrap our head around it. But now it's pretty obvious to me what's going on. We're all just thinking new ways. We're all thinking in different brain patterns. I mean, we've had we're so used to these lines being drawn, right? And even the border, right? Even the border. One of the things I heard Trump say the other day, it's like, this is a line that somebody drew hundreds of years ago, very long time ago, and what does it really mean anymore? And now look, the only reason I get upset, the only reason I'm careful when I talk about the border is because I know it's a very touchy subject for Canadian people. But, I mean, let's be real, guys. There's 40 million people in Canada. That's less than quite a few United States as a whole.
It is?
Yeah, it is. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well,
there's maybe
I'm not sure how many are in California.
You're right. There's in California. You're right. I was thinking Texas and California, but still, it would be the largest state. It would be huge. But the point is it's literally just a line. Why should it be one state? It could be two states, right? It doesn't really matter. But the point is we pay for the defense of this nation, right? There's all these resources up there that we're not allowed to have access to. They're threatening tariffs on our energy, right? Because we don't want to pay them, right? Like, the deal just doesn't make any sense at this point. And the only reason that we go along with it is because Canadians' entire identity is based around not being American. I mean, people are going to get really mad at me.
I'm going to start singing "Oh Canada."
I know people are going to get really mad at me for saying that, but this is the 21st century. The world has been a certain way for a really long time, but things change, right? The Louisiana Purchase was probably a big deal when it happened. When the Declaration of Independence was a huge deal when it happened. Like things can change, maps can be redrawn, and imagine this country if Canada was part of us and Greenland. Man, there's so much land. Like, there's more than enough for everybody. We wouldn't have to, parcel out every bit of Vermont's land if we could expand into Canada a little bit. Imagine mega Vermont, a little bit bigger of a Vermont. All right, I'll stop. The world's best maple syrup industry.
What can you say, eh? So, Yeah, I didn't think we were going to go down that road, but that's okay.
I can't help it.
It's a free speech
It
forum.
still counts. It still connects.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm glad you're bringing it up. Yeah, borders, yeah, we actually, yeah, anyway, yeah. Okay,
Do you want to take another moment for comments here?
absolutely.
Okay, we have one from Adam Lash. He writes, let's bring it back to the main topic today.
Yeah.
Why in the world, why is the word protesters in quotations? Also, disruption itself is a form of free speech. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding many people have about freedom of speech and what exactly that means. So,
Oh, did you say any more than that?
that's it. That's it.
Adam, we'd love to have you clarify and expound more on that.
You know,
Okay.
to be fair, like I did say, maybe you wrote this comment a little bit after I had said it, but you know, if somebody wants to go in and disrupt the event, by all means, feel free to. I don't have a problem with that, but don't be surprised.
But for how long?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is don't be surprised when people start to pull you out of the room. I mean, if the police or whomever else is there supposed to be doing
Yeah.
their job, that's where the the middle ground is. I would say.
I
don't know.
think if we were insisting on our own free speech rights, we need to allow other people's free speech rights as well.
Yeah.
You can't just say, I'm the only one, I've got the loudest megaphone, I get free speech. Now, I did have one of my pals up at the State House, who's a lobbyist longer than I ever was, said, look, here's how they should have done it. A few years ago, there was a marching band that went through the State House for who knows what, some issue. And they weren't very good, but they went from room to room to room, and basically they were in every room for about 45 seconds, just long enough to be annoying, just long enough to make their point, and then they moved on.
Yeah.
And everyone got to hear it, and no one got too annoyed that they wanted them thrown out of the State House. So that's maybe the way to do it, is to come and make your point, even if you're a little disruptive and obnoxious, but don't shut other people down. That is breaking the social contract and very possibly breaking the law as well. But it's definitely breaking the social contract that binds us together.
Yeah. Freedom and unity, you know?
Yeah.
In that sense, we believe in freedom and we're willing to unify over the ideas of free speech, and we just would hope that others would do the same. You know, not that that was my event, but I very clearly, I mean, obviously I agree with the event's premise. They should be allowed to host it. You know, there should be no, you know, you can't just shout them out of the State House. That seems crazy.
So before we get into our next ad, after which we're going to talk about what this was like dealing with Fox News and those guys, which was pretty cool, and we want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I do want to say one more thing about the tariffs. The president has been saying all along, as far as Mexico goes, this is not really about the immigrants, although it sort of is, but it's about the fentanyl. It's about the fentanyl.
Yeah.
New York Times reports several days ago, now that the Mexican government is cracking down on the cartels, they're like hardly able to make any more fentanyl. They're you know, this amazing thing has happened where the government is being the government and they're treating the crooks like crooks, and because they've got Donald Trump breathing on them to do so. And so factory after factory after factory of fentanyl manufacturing is being shut down. So I asked the state police at the press conference last week, are we starting to see any impact in Vermont on the price of fentanyl? And they said, well, nationally, there's some weakening of the purity of fentanyl. Maybe they're cutting a little bit nationally, but we're not yet seeing in Vermont a reduction in supply or an increase in the cost of fentanyl, which is, when it stops flowing across the border, that's what you're going to see. So, but folks, we're keeping our eye on that, because this could have the impact in the next few months of drastically cutting the supply of fentanyl. And may it be. So Paul, you got another ad for us?
I do. This episode is brought to you by Ranmar Corporation. Ranmar Corporation has been serving central Vermont and surrounding areas with excavation, construction, and real estate services since 1979. They're a local, family-owned company committed to the values of Vermont. Contact Randmar Corporation today for all of your contracting and real estate needs. Guy, and they're based right out here in Berlin, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And that's you're
Right up the hill from me. We
That's right.
walk our dog past Randy Rulo's house all the time, most of the development was built by Randy. Not all of it, most of it. Beautiful, beautiful homes, great neighborhood, and I'm very grateful. There's, some people, all they do is produce paperwork, and some other people produce beautiful homes to live in, and Randy is the latter, and we really, really appreciate that.
Yes, we do. So moving into the media discussion of how this all took place. So I don't know if any of you out there are familiar with Libs of TikTok, which is kind of this group on X. It's actually, it might be just an individual.
And folks, this is why I hired Paul.
Oh,
because he knows all this social media stuff and he can make it happen. And yesterday it did. Go ahead, Paul.
Yesterday was kind of one of those moments where it's like, we knew we knew Wednesday. Okay, we got a hot one here.
Right.
We got a really hot story here. Based on what I know about social media, like this Libs of TikTok group, this is like prime material for that organization. They're constantly kind of scraping the internet for situations like these, and if you watched Jesse Waters last night, actually there was a handful of situations mentioned on Jesse Waters that Libs of TikTok had been promoting throughout the day. So there's some level of coherence there. They work together in some degree, but kind of like us.
So Libs of TikTok is watching us. Jesse Waters is watching Libs of TikTok.
Exactly.
Ha.
Yeah. Well, and maybe
or something.
Maybe Libs of TikTok. Yeah. Like I don't know how it works for them, but probably they have some type of structure where they're kind of scrapers for the large.
We watch the Newport Dispatch.
And
we run stories from the Newport Dispatch.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And thank you, Brian, for letting us do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the gist of it. So just to show you all here, if I can get the screen pulled up, here's the screen share from. So this is Libs of TikTok, and our video on their page now has 812,000 views on it.
Wow.
812,000 views. So just so you are aware, that is now the second video produced by Vermont Daily Chronicle or within our organization in the last 2 weeks that has gone over 500,000 views. We had a video, and I just want to mention this just because it's a milestone for us. It really is.
Yeah.
We had a video on Facebook. It was the video of J.D. Vance's motorcade going through Mad River Valley. Iconic, in my opinion. That video got 1 million views on it, and that had to do with really a lot of the arguing and outrage and people upset about how many vehicles.
It really was the Mad.
It really
River.
was the Mad River Valley. Yeah. So the point is, though, about everything I'm saying is like our media reach has just totally expanded this year. Within a full year itself, but even since the beginning of the new year, we've just had like this explosion. I was looking at the numbers for our website and different things, and it's like, man, like all these, we're just hitting it on so many different spots, right? And to get on Fox News, I can't help but to wonder if there was somebody out there who saw our name and said, man, there those guys are again. What the heck? How do I get away from them? So we're kind of excited about that. But point is, that's probably how we caught the radar at Fox. We just have expanded how much we're putting out, the quality of the stuff that we're putting out. The story itself is obviously so controversial, but if you have the substance and the backing to go with it, people take notice, and that includes them. So last night you got an email, you forwarded it to me, and I thought, oh, guy responded to them, great. They're maybe going to use it, maybe not. He's handling it, whatever. Then I get a call from Mary Beerworth, of all people, saying, hey, Paul, I'm on the phone with blah, 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 and they're trying to get a hold of you. And I said, oh, no, they're fine. The guy already said yes, they can use the clip. And then I got a call like maybe 5 minutes later from Fox News. And
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? No. I'm sorry, I didn't pass that on. But Fox News called me, and I picked up the phone. Hello? I was like, oh, this is whoever it was with Fox News. I was like, whoa, this is so cool, oh my God. So, and then I was a little giddy, a little excited, and then of course,
so was I.
Well, 45 seconds, right? But hey, it's on prime time, man. That's on, that's the big leagues, baby.
That's right.
So I think it was thank you to the trans disruptors, I guess, right? I mean, listen, talk about like taking a negative situation and what they're trying to do with it, and it just being totally like backfiring and working against them in so many ways.
What I think of it as, pretty soon the dandelions are going to be growing with the big white puffballs,
Sure.
And if you say, oh, this lousy dandelion, I hate this dandelion, I'm going to make it go away.
That's what you do when you're mad, of course.
And out go all the seeds.
Right.
And that is really what happened here. They tried to smush the dandelion, they tried to make it go away, and out it went. So, yeah.
All it did was make more noise and plant more seeds. And I think that just comes with the territory of what we do. You really do have to take each situation like that, and it's not. I do think it was funny what they did, because it's just as a as somebody who appreciates theater, honestly,
right.
It's funny.
Yeah,
it was
it
like
was.
this is kind of hilarious.
It's pretty good street theater. Is what it was.
It really was.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you not laugh at it? But
right.
But then I'm also.
the blowing the kiss at Renee and everything. That was priceless.
It was pretty funny. But and so thank you for that. But it's still a serious problem, and it needs to be addressed. And I'm glad that Renee is getting a little bit of a platform here with this.
Right.
And to that point, I know we want to talk about the story that came out today. Basically, she's hoping to have an apology,
right,
from Vermont leadership, from Vermont Democrat leadership, who we showed you the graphic that they're using, and
Paul, the reason I say Democrat rather than majority is the press release was from the Vermont Democratic Party saying Democratic leaders. So it's not just me pointing fingers. They're saying, we own this, we own this. We're calling these detransitioning people, what they did, an attack. They own this.
Yeah. No, and they do too. That's a really good point. Look, let's just be honest. I mean, before I read the quote from Renee here asking for an apology, I just want to say, Democrats, I don't know why you guys are taking the stance like this, because look, even in Vermont, Democrats lost a lot of seats this last year, and nationally, the whole transgender issue is so unpopular. Whether it's men playing in women's sports, this situation is proving to be quite unpopular as well, even locally, from what I'm seeing, reported on by WCAX, reported on by us, all the comments, everything. I don't see a lot of support of what you're seeing. I think people are more.
Paul, is it that they're not supporting the transgender thing, or is it the free speech thing?
I think it's more the free speech thing. It's more so that you're right. Maybe it's not necessarily that they're not supporting trans people. They're not saying, hey, we don't support trans people. All they're saying is, hey, we don't support your right. We don't support your actions to go in here and try to shut down somebody else's organization in their event.
Right.
We don't support that. The issue itself, and that's kind of how I feel. Yeah. The issue itself, opinionless, right? I mean, I could tell you my opinions, but that's not the purpose of the discussion here. What I'm seeing from people is people saying, hey, this is ridiculous. You're silencing people, and all you're doing is making transgender people look bad. At the end of the day, I mean, that's all you're doing. So
I think there's a lot of independent-minded Vermonters who are not political, who get tired and they just check out at all of this issues and policy and advocacy and all this stuff and the politics. But they know unfairness when they see it.
Yes.
And they know you shut your mouth when they hear it. And so if you want to really alienate the more or less apolitical middle, what better way than what they just did? So really, I think politically, maybe I shouldn't say this too loud, but politically, that was really stupid.
Yeah.
And for the Democrat, not only for the trans movement, but for the Democratic leadership of the legislature to be so Orwellian in their thinking as to say the victims here were the people, were the Transtifa types who were basically marching in and shutting everything shutting everything down. They're the victims. That's nuts.
It is nuts. I think it is Orwellian is the right phrase. And look at this last election with Donald Trump. I mean, I can tell you multiple stories of people telling me here in Vermont, even, hey, you know that ad that about her supporting Kamala Harris supporting transgender surgeries in prison for illegals,
right.
which is all of the. That's like, whoo, that's everything, right? That's like the worst of the worst. That's like, but the point is like, that was a losing issue, the losing issue.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is a losing issue, I think, even in Vermont. And I think as we all get a little older here, as time goes on, as things change, it's going to continue to be a losing issue.
Right.
I think that what they're doing is setting up the Vermont Republican Party for the biggest slam dunk ever in 2026. And I'm literally saying this just as a warning to them, like, hey, giving you guys a little, like, here's inside baseball, a little inside information. We're looking at what you're doing and we're saying, guys, like, this is what you're supporting? You're making this easy.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say there.
Yeah.
I said too much.
Well, no, I don't think so.
No.
Any comments, Paul?
We do have a couple comments, but before we go to them, I want to go to an ad.
Sure.
Here, hold on one second. Today's episode is also brought to you by One Day in July Investment Management. As financial advisors, One Day in July provides personalized investment management and financial advice to individuals, families, and institutions. They work with clients to understand their financial goals and build investment solutions. They are fiduciaries for all accounts, for all clients. I always like to bring up Dan Cunningham anytime we mention his ad on the show, because he's somebody who is just such a great supporter of the Chronicle, and we're so glad to have him as part of what we do, just because I think his company is so unique and different to Vermont. Especially one like his that supports our group and our organization.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to have that.
A true wealth creator by his creativity and his intelligence, and tens of thousands of people are wealthier because of it. I mean, wow, that is really impressive. So what do we have for another comment?
Steve Thurston comments, Robert Fireovid nailed it in the VDC op-ed. It's a crime called disturbing the peace.
Right.
Thank you, Steve. And actually, strangely enough, Guy, while that's all going on, there I am sitting having a conversation with Steve Thurston, who just commented. Steve, we never have to finish our conversation because my boss came in and told me, hey, you, get down there.
Get down there. Get down there.
He gave me the JD Vance. He gave me the old, hey, you, get out of here. Yeah, okay. I couldn't help it. So
you do look a little like JD Vance.
I've been working on it. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is, I was trying to have we're having a conversation. We didn't get to finish it. So I'm going to be reaching back out to you very soon, and let's get that conversation finished. And here's a comment from Taryn. Taryn writes, it is the suppression of speech they don't want others to hear, i.e. the truth. Trantifa.
Yeah.
That's
and I'm sure that is not most transgender people. I have transgender colleagues and friends who I have good conversations with, but it almost doesn't matter what your issue is. If that's the way you act, it kind of puts you outside the arena of public discussion.
Yeah.
And it's just a bad look.
And actually, Guy, that's really well put. Because you know what? As much as this issue, if you want it to be about transitioning, like whatever, transgender issues itself, fine. Like that's a subject that should be an open conversation about. But at the end of the day, yeah, if that's how you're going to act in an argument at work, right? If you're at your job and you dislike how money's being spent, and you're in a board meeting and you just like blow up, well, that's not going to get you anywhere. And actually, it's just going to make people not like you. no matter what, right? I mean,
Right.
if you're having an argument with your significant other and you don't like the
how's
things,
that work out for you?
it does not work out very well. Just talking over them and trying to silence them. I mean, that's actually, I mean, really, that's probably a good way to think about it, though. To be fair, like your family, would you talk to your family that way? Would you talk to your significant other that way? Because at the end of the day, you know, we're all just people, and we're trying to solve these issues. And this person deserves to be heard. This person deserves to be heard. And by silencing one or the other, all you're doing is ostracizing and isolating these ideas into these silos. And,
Right.
you know, that's not a good thing. I don't want to be either of these two people not capable of hearing
Right.
what the other person has to say. Doesn't
Very
mean I
well
have to
said.
agree with it.
Very well said.
But with that, we should probably go to our last ad before we close out the show. Today's episode is also brought to you by Perro's Gun Shop. Discover Perro's, Vermont's premier firearms destination, nestled in Waterbury. Explore an unparalleled selection of firearms, complemented by their exclusive indoor firearm range, its only kind in Vermont. Elevate your skills with their comprehensive professional training classes tailored to every level of expertise. At Perro's, they're dedicated to providing exceptional service and expertise for all of your firearms needs. Perro's Gun Shop in Waterbury.
It just makes me want to get a 45 and go down to the range down there. 45 is such a cool firearm, you know.
Well, hopefully they're out there watching, Guy. I can't say anything today, but we're cooking something up with them. We gotta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're yeah.
Okay.
They let's just say they assisted me. Perro's Gun Shop assisted me with some gun-related argument that I had on Twitter the other day, and that's a whole topic of discussion for itself. But
For another day,
yes,
as they say.
And before we close, should I read Renee's comment just before we?
I want to do all the rest of the comments.
Oh, I'm just Renee's comment.
Oh, yeah, please do. Good way to close it out.
So this is just to show y'all. This is Renee McGinnis, who helped organize the event on Wednesday.
Vermont Family Alliance.
She said, "I would like to see a public apology from Vermont Senate and House Democrats for mischaracterizing our event as an attack on the transgender community." Renee McGinnis, public policy analyst for Vermont Family Alliance, said, "Our First Amendment, free speech rights were denied, while disruptors were granted the special privilege to use the room we had booked for 15 minutes by the Office of the Sergeant-at-Arms, Agatha Kessler. This spectacle made national news, and it was a shameful display of lack of decorum in our State House." So there you have it, folks. That's Sarah McGinnis, the organizer of the event. You know, props to her. Really, honestly, like I was saying to you guys before we started the show, like, to be honest with you, would I want to be on the news in that situation? No, I wouldn't. But you know what? She stands for what she believes in, and she was willing to put herself out there like that. I have a lot of respect for her. You know, in that moment to honestly, she might have been yelling, but the reality is she kept her composure. A lot of other people would have been a lot more upset.
Oh, she did.
including me.
Absolutely kept her composure.
She did. She
Yeah.
really did.
Yeah, and it's not easy to do.
No.
Well, Paul, thank you for your excellent production of the show.
Thank you.
You just get better and better at that.
We're getting there.
And who knows who we're going to talk to next week?
I know. It's just I kind of just a point. I know we're trying to wrap it up, Guy, but it's like every day it's like something crazier for us, you know, and nationally as well, but for everybody. But for where we're at right now, what we're doing, I mean, we started this thing a year ago with the podcast. The Chronicle's been chugging along for a while, but everything just seems like it's happening in such a flash of an eye. So could never happen without everybody out there watching today. So we should just absolutely thank you guys as well. What do you think?
I think have a great weekend, everyone. It's supposed to be warm. Colette and I are going to sit outside and enjoy the sun tomorrow. I can't wait. So, good night, everyone. Good weekend. And watch for Vermont Daily Chronicle in your email tomorrow and on Monday.